We're 2 days away from Election Day 2022. We begin this hour with brand new NBC News polling showing where things stand ahead of Tuesday. There is some good and bad news for each party. When it comes to control of Congress, it is a dead heat, with 47% of registered voters wanting Democrats and 47% wanting Republicans, essentially unchanged from last month. However, an overwhelming number of voters say the country is heading in the wrong direction, 72%, compared to just 21% who say things are going in the right direction. 47% of voters say they want a, quote, great deal of change in the direction that President Biden is leading the country, more than during the first terms of President Donald Trump, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton. As for Biden, just 44% of registered voters approve of his job performance, while 53% disapprove. Threats to democracy remain the most important issue amongst voters, with the economy a close second, followed by cost of living, abortion, and the border. As for the state of the economy, just 19% of registered voters say they're satisfied, while 81% say they are dissatisfied. Like I said, there is some good news for Democrats. Back in October, Republicans held a 9 percentage point advantage over Democrats when it came to high-level interest in the midterms. As you can see, that's now a tie at 73%. Joining me now to help break down and understand all of this new data we're just getting in is NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, you've been spending the last little while pouring through the data and the cross-tabulations. Tell me what stands out to you in this new polling.
Yeah, Ali, I think there are two very big stories. And first is the one that you actually did touch on, that how Democrats have caught up in election interest. From our most recent poll back in October, you had Republicans with a 9-point edge in enthusiasm. Now Democrats have pulled even on that score. And in a lot of ways, Ali, that actually reminds me of what ended up happening in 2018, which was a really good midterm environment for Democrats when Donald Trump was president. But after the fight over Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination, Republicans ended up getting fired up. They ended up drawing close to even with Democrats in enthusiasm. And while Democrats won back the House, won some key statewide contests, Republicans actually held their own in some very tough races. But the other takeaway is just the overall grim environment that Democrats are facing, with President Biden's approval rating at 44%. As you mentioned, 81% of voters saying that they are somewhat or very dissatisfied with the economy, and 7 in 10 who believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction. Those traditional fundamentals usually point to a really tough midterm environment for the party in power, and in this case, it's Democrats. And Ali, I think we're going to see these two forces at play. Fired up Democrats, certainly more fired up than we saw when they held power in 2010 and 2014, but also some very tough overall fundamentals that do suggest Republicans making some gains. But also do remember, too, this is not a national contest in a way. These races that we're covering are going to be fought congressional district by congressional district, state by state, and we're not going to probably know for days, if not even weeks, what the final score is going to be.
Obviously, the economy always ranks as a high issue. It does here, but when you combine the interests and top issues of Democrats and Republicans, democracy is at the top of that list. But unlike the economy, what your fear of democracy is depends on what story you believe about democracy right now.
Yeah, Ali, I mean, the people who say threats to democracy is their number one issue are disproportionately Democrats. But you are right. The Republicans who answer threats to democracy have a different takeaway of what that means versus Democrats. But I do think there are two ways to read what is your number one issue heading into the midterms. And yes, once again, threats to democracy is number one. This has been consistent after months of polling. But also when you add up jobs in the economy and cost of living, if you add those up into one economic bucket, that actually ends up surpassing threats to democracy. And as we've seen in our poll and others, Republicans have the advantage when it comes to the economy.
Mark, let me ask you about the economy, because it ranks number 2 and number 3. So it's different questions. Jobs in the economy and inflation. Tell me what that means when you see those as number 2 and number 3. Does that add up to be bigger than number one?
Yeah, again, I think there are two ways to look at it. You could actually add them up and say, the economy overall, when you add those two, is the number one issue. But, our pollsters have wanted to actually put those two into separate buckets. That inflation is different than the economic direction. But I would add, Allie, that in our poll, Republicans have had the advantage with both cost of living and the jobs in the economy, and what party would better handle that issue.
Mark, thanks very much. Good to see you. Mark Murray is a senior political editor for NBC News. We appreciate you joining us this morning.